Ladies and gentlemen, I read closely the directives about what I'm going to speak about, and so I'm not going to describe the life of Mannerheim from birth to death, but focusing on actually the creation of formation of his geopolitical thinking. First, some just facts. He was born in 1867 and died in 1951. Served 30 years in the Russian Imperial Army, returned to Finland during the Russian Revolution, and then led the Finnish army in 2 world wars, that is to say, First World War and Second World War. And then, as mentioned, ended as President of the Republic between 44 and 46. I have in my earlier works also focused on how political leaders, lead their country or their armies, and have, in a way, developed a kind of three-dimensional, applied a three-dimensional model in which I claim that the way a person leads his nation, his state is based on 3 things. The first is his or her biological and social cultural background, his or her career up until the moment when she or he takes over, the preparation years, I could say. That is, of course, very important to take in account when we look at how a person is capable of taking responsibility and lead and rescue the country, which was the case with Mannerheim, both in World War I and World War II. But the other dimension is, of course, the context, especially when talking about a military or political leader in a small country as Finland. It's no use to claim that you can change the framework in which you work. You are thrown into the situation and have to cope in that very sort of harsh situation. Of course, also that is the case in peace time, but it's of course it's not necessary to emphasize the difference between peace and war too much. There's still a lot of course, challenges and problems also in peacetime. But in Mannerheim's case, actually, he had not a responsible position between the 2 world wars. He was, in a way, lost pretty soon after he had led the white Finnish army against the revolutionaries in 1980. He lost his position and returned, actually, in power as a commander-in-chief only in 1939. But it is not, of course, not only the geopolitical context that you have to look at. That is to say, the things that you cannot change, but you have to cope with, and with that also then use the knowledge, the character you have got during the years of preparation. And the third dimension actually is coincidence, luck, destiny. And some of my colleagues have claimed that this is, pure laziness for a historian to claim that things just happen. You need to find a rational, logical reason for why things happen both on an individual level and occasional statecraft. Now, in Mannerheim's case, you can say that the first dimension, biological, sociocultural, so to say, background, he had some obvious advantages. He had, a very strong physiology, attractive outlook and a strong body. And he had also, reasonably, a kind of, I wouldn't say that he was especially, his intellect was not especially sharp, but it was, in a way, how should I describe it? I kind of, he had a capacity to find out the situation in which he and the nation or the army was in. That is not especially, it's not truly the same thing as sharp intellect. But those were, so to say, his backgrounds. Then, of course, born in a high aristocracy family in Finland, he had some obvious advantages, and his career early in the Russian army was very much thanks to the family contacts in St. Petersburg, and not least also towards the imperial family. So those, so to say, advantages he clearly had. But then, of course, not everyone that had those advantages was able to use them properly. And in Mannerheim's case, I cannot emphasize enough his nature of being a streber, to the wish to show to his contemporaries that he was capable to reach something, because in his early life as a teenager he was not a success in the cadet schooling, but then during his following years in Russia he was actually performing very well. Then, of course, when he continued his career in Russia, he also showed very much also skills as a soldier in the Russian Japanese War, and especially when he did a almost 2 years long espionage mission through Central Asia between 1906 and 1908. That was something that really strengthened and formed his character. I know it sounds old-fashioned to talk about character building, but in Mannerheim's case, I claim this was his, the moment when his character was formed in the way, not only in question how to show resilience, but also to understand the geopolitics. It's still a huge country, Russia, and first traveling to Manchuria and take part in the Russian Japanese War, and then ride 14,000 kilometers through Central Asia, and then collecting, of course, military information about the Chinese preparation for next war. And then the career in First World War and returning actually to Finland in December 1970. So those were, so to say, the background that really you have to take in. This is the preparation of the leader. But then, of course, the tests arrived. He had reached to the rank of general lieutenant during the First World War, but when he returned to Finland and led the counter-revolutionary army, the White Army, against revolutionaries in Finland, he was able to use not only his military knowledge but also his geopolitical thinking, because it is a complicated story, the war in Finland 1980. I will not try to explain to it. But my point is actually it was not a separate war. It was a part of the Russian Revolution and First World War, and he understood that. The German forces were also involved, and that he opposed very much. So his, in a way, role in that was short. Directly after the Red troops had been defeated, he had to leave because the Germans demanded it. But the second, of course, big moment was during the following World War. I'm talking now about the contextual dimension of my description of the way how a leader leads the country. And that was the preparation for that was Mannerheim actually lived as a private man for 20 years. And astonishingly enough, he returned at the age of 72 to again become a commander-in-chief. When the regulations, according to the regulations, you should retire when you are 60. But his authority was so strong, and his kind of geopolitical thinking and advices to the Finnish government had been so decisive that when the Soviet troops then attacked Finland in last of November 1939, he was again named commander-in-chief. And during Second World War, actually, his role as a geopolitician was probably more important than his role as a military leader, because he was 72 and he had begun his career as a cavalryist, and it was not about the cavalry in the Second World War. So clearly he was then able to use all these experiences that he had got from actually from 1890s onwards, and also decided that Finland should join the Operation Barbarossa in 1941, for which of course he was heavily criticized after Second World War. But in his discussions after that war, he admitted that it was the risk that Finland had to take. Of course, that was not something that he admitted in his memoirs that were published in the early 1950s, but to a close colleague, the man that followed him as a president, Juho Kusto Paasikivi, has said that it was a risk we had to take, and of course it didn't go like we thought, but Finland survived. Finland was not either occupied in the latter part of Second World War. The third dimension, coincidences, luck, destiny. How much did that play a role in Mannerheim's life? I would say actually astonishingly. I'm not a superstitious person, but and he is not either emphasizing that in his memoirs that were of course pretty much written by ghostwriters, but of course he edited it. But there was a number of times that he could pretty well have been killed on the battlefield, and also during the Russian Revolution. He traveled from Ukraine, from Odessa to Helsinki in December 1970. So there was a number of times when the railway was was stopped, and the revolutionaries tried to drag him out, but he survived. And on one of the railway station, he saw the blood of one of his colleagues that had just been shot, and there was some, of course, attempts to murder him during 1918 and during Second World War. And you have to remember, he was 72 when Second World War broke out, and he was not in good condition anymore. Of course, he took his every morning he rode for 1 hour, and in that way tried to keep in good condition. But on the other hand, I don't know if you say it in English that way, but in Finnish we say that you don't spit in the glass, and he did not either. But he was a tall man, and so that's why he actually then survived. So it's in Mannerheim's case, actually, it is possible, I claim, to use these three explanations for how a leader is formed and how he then is able to cope with these harsh and extreme conditions that he and his country is thrown into. And I have just got my Mannerheim biography that is translated into English, now published in Great Britain, and that's why I'm especially glad to speak about that theme. Thank you very much.
Thank you.